but here's where Christians are different. We don't think that Jesus is just a good person with wise teaching or with good principles. We would go far farther than that and say that he was the literal deity, the Son of God in human form who died for our sin. So the fact that Jesus existed is a historical certainty, the meaning of Jesus' existence. For that, we have to go to the message of Scripture. In John chapter number 8, you find that Jesus said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, before Abraham was, I am." And they took up stones to stone him. Do you realize Jesus never just presented himself as a prophet? Jesus didn't present himself as just a good moral teacher. Some people want to say Jesus never claimed to be God. Well, guess what? Jesus fed hungry people, but that's not why they killed him. Jesus gave sight to the blind. That's not why they killed him. Jesus preached to the poor. He wasn't crucified for that. Jesus fed the hungry. They didn't nail him to a cross for feeding the hungry. Jesus claimed to be God. That's why he was crucified. Now, while there's a lot of places you can go in Scripture that talk about Jesus being God, I love Acts 2, but I think of John chapter number 1, I think of Revelation, I think of Hebrews 1. There's so many places, I think of Isaiah chapter 9, that show Jesus as God. If you start with Jesus himself claiming to be God, my Bible doesn't have red letters, but if yours does, and you turn to John chapter 8, verse 58, that verse is in red. Because Jesus said, "Before Abraham was, I am." And the Jews took up stones to stone him. Why? Because he had just committed heresy. He had just blasphemed. He had just claimed to be God. You can't do that in the Jewish culture. Instant death sentence. So Jesus himself claimed to be God, received worship from God, forgave sin as God. Throughout the New Testament, Jesus is strutting around like he's God, like he commands nature, like he can perform miracles, like he can forgive sins. He makes claims like this that the Jews know he's claiming to be God. So here's my question to you. Was that claim true or false? Well, some people say, well, Jesus claimed to be God, but he was wrong. He wasn't really God. Well, if Jesus wasn't really God, we still have a problem. Because if Jesus wasn't God, and he knew he wasn't God, but he said he was God anyway, what does that make him? That makes him a liar. If Jesus said he was God, but he wasn't really God, and he went around telling people that, he was a liar. Guess what? The greatest prophet and moral teacher of human history and someone who based his whole life on a lie, those don't go together, do they? Do you see, the most popular non-Christian idea of Jesus is the least rational? Jesus could not have been a good moral teacher because he claimed to be God. And if he wasn't God, and he knew he wasn't God when he said that, he was a liar. What if he wasn't God, but he thought he was God? Have you ever wondered if you were God? I've got a pro tip. If you're not sure if you're omniscient, you're not. Okay? That's how that works. But some people say maybe Jesus thought he was God. Maybe he thought he was the creator. He thought he could forgive sin. He thought he was eternal. No. If somebody thinks that they're God, they're crazy. They're a lunatic. Right? So Jesus claimed to be God. If he wasn't God, he was either a liar or he was a lunatic. What if that claim to be God is actually true? Well, he's not a liar then, is he? He certainly wasn't a lunatic. He's the Lord of the universe. When you go to Scripture, there's no room given for this idea that he's a good moral teacher. In fact, C.S. Lewis said as much.